The best real estate deals are not being marketed. They're not on any list. They are on the hidden market. And tonight, Tony Youngs tells us how to get out there and find them.
During the pandemic, I had so many real estate brokers, investors, all complaining that it is hard to find deals. And I guess that's why I still do the hidden market today, because even I know a lot of real estate agents, and if I tell them to bring me deals, I I have to bid against other people. And if I go to foreclosure auctions, which there hadn't been hardly any in the past year, but if I go, I have to outbid what every other investor is willing to pay to get that deal. And I suddenly find myself not being able to make a profit. So I have to find deals with less competition, because if you talk to someone in foreclosure even today, they will tell you that they get hundreds of letters of people wanting to buy their home. But if you ask them how many people knocked on your door, they'll say nobody. You're the only one. This is not even a half-mile radius. And there's probably 40, 50, maybe 60 homes in this picture. In that neighborhood, there is somebody going through life happens. But how do we know which ones they are? They don't have a flag in front of their house saying, I'm that guy. I'm the one going that's unemployed. I'm filing bankruptcy. My wife left me. My dog left me. The way I do it is I look for homes with no pride of ownership. And if you have no pride of ownership, maybe you're lazy, maybe you're going through something. Who knows? But I'm going to find out. So I knock on your door. Hey, I was just in the neighborhood. I'm looking to buy a home. I mean, if someone says, what made you come to my door? I always say, I love your house. And I really do. You see, they think I'm talking about Cape Cod or ranch or whatever, but I love it because I love houses that look like crap. I love houses that need work. In this neighborhood, if you drive these streets, you're going to find an ugly house, meaning everybody else has manicured lawns. They have, their bushes are trimmed, their yard is edged, their house is painted and clean. But there's always somebody who's not taking care of their house. So when I'm in a neighborhood, if I see a house that looks like crap, it makes me think somebody is going through something. And even if they're not, what does it hurt to ask? If you look at this map in the bottom left-hand corner, I always would plot a course of foreclosures and go knock on their doors. Wish there was a way I could find out who is about to go into foreclosure. And I discovered the hidden market. When I plot a course of 10 foreclosures, I do that once a week. I plot a course and I go follow that course. And when I get to the first foreclosure on the course, I don't care if they want to sell or not, because what I'm really interested in is all the distressed properties in and around that neighborhood. So I drive that entire neighborhood and I find 3 or 4 other distressed houses with no for sale signs. So I write down the addresses, but I also knock on the doors. I knock on the door, I leave a flyer or a letter on the door. If they don't answer, I go home and do the research and I send letters. And now I call on the phone. So I go to the first property, I knock on the foreclosure and I say, do you want to sell? 9 out of 10 people are going to say no. You just have to accept that. You just have to accept that everything is a numbers game. And so when someone says no, it's not for sale, I don't want that, doesn't bother me. I go on to the next one. But there is two other questions I always ask when I knock on a door. I say, "Hi, I'm looking to buy a home in the neighborhood. Would you be interested in selling your home?" And they say, if they say no, I say, "Do you know anybody else that is thinking about selling their home soon in this neighborhood?" And you'd be surprised how many people will say, "Yeah, you might want to talk to the Joneses. The lady just died and the two sons live there, and I don't think they have jobs. So go see what they're going to do." And they give you leads. And then I'll say, "Do you know any vacant homes in this neighborhood that I might be able to buy?" And they'll say, "Well, that one across the street is vacant and there's cars in the driveway." I would have never known it was vacant unless a neighbor had told me. When I do this every week, I always end up with two probate situations before probate begins. And I am buying houses every month, and a lot of the ones turn out to be probate situations. And it's the perfect time to find a probate because, like foreclosure, probates, once they go into probate, the people get a lot of letters because investors have figured it out, chase the probate people. But if you can find people before probate begins, there is so much more you can do for them to get them to like and believe in you, and they would rather sell to you than other investors. This is kind of contradicting what I've been telling you. When I'm driving through neighborhoods, I am looking for high grass and overgrown bushes. But this turned out to be a grand slam. And the reason that I felt this was a hidden market is because when I drove by, it looked vacant. I had this sixth sense. I said, that house has got to be vacant. It just looks vacant. See, that's the car I was driving. That's why there's a car there. I pulled in the driveway and I went over here, and there's a door on the side, and I knocked on the door and no one answered. So I went to look in this window right here. And in that window, the whole room was filled with black plastic garbage bags filled with I don't know what. So what I did is I I went to the front door and knocked, and nobody answered. And then I went over to the neighbor. I said, "Hey, does anybody live in that house next door?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Him and 30 cats live in that house." And the neighbor said, "That house is so disgusting. It's so filthy," that he goes, "I have reported him to the code enforcement many times." And so I said, "Well, I'd buy that house if he'd sell it and I'd clean it up. Do you know if he might be interested in selling? What does he do? Tell me more about him." He goes, "I don't know what he does. He comes and goes, but he is disgusting." And sorry to be so blunt, but that's what the neighbor said. So, folks, I left a letter on his door. And then I went on my merry way, but I went back the next day and I knocked again. You see, follow up. Every time I go out, I find 30 hidden markets. But if I don't follow up, I lose a lot of deals. So I went back the next day and knocked. Still nobody answered. I went back the next day. Nobody answered. I kept leaving a note. And then I waited a day and I skipped a day. And then I went back on the fifth day and he was home. And I said, "Hey, I'm looking to buy a home in this area and I wanted to know, would you be interested in selling yours?" He said, "No." He goes, "The code enforcement said that I had to, basically gut the house within they've given me 60 days to gut the house and remodel the inside, or they're going to condemn it." And I said, So what are you going to do? He said, I don't have any money. He goes, I don't even have a job. He goes, my mom left this house to me, and it was free and clear. So I've never had to make a payment, but I don't have any money. So I said, well, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to let him condemn it. My brother told me I could live with him. So I'm moving in with my brother. And I said, but I would buy the house. And he said, you don't want this house. Even he said it was disgusting. I said, well, could I see the inside? So when he took me in, folks, as soon as we walked in, on the door jamb, there were roaches crawling up and they were falling on my head. And it's in because those garbage bags in the room, they were all filled with garbage. And there was just roaches everywhere. And I thought there was rats, but because things kept jumping out at me, and I was terrified, but it was cats. They were all stashed in there in amongst everything. And the house was full of all that garbage because he couldn't afford a garbage service. So he just threw it in that one room. And the inside was so disgusting, I never even made it to the back master bedroom. I said, that's okay. I've seen enough. I told the guy, I said, you know, I can, that's what I do. I fix up houses. I said, I can get this place fixed up if you'll sell it. I said, don't you need some money? He goes, well, I was just going to let them have it. I said, how much would you take for it? He said, hell, I don't know, 20,000. Well, folks, if I'd have made a normal offer, I would have offered 50 or 60, but because the land is worth that much. But he, when he said 20, I always carry blank contracts in a file folder in the back of my car. I went and got a thing and I said, okay, I'll give you 20. And I filled out a contract and I said, all you got to do is sign right here and I'll give you 20,000 for this. And he looked at me and he said, I feel like I'm ripping you off. He said, should we make it 10? And I said, no. I said, we've already filled out the contract. I have an inspection clause. If my inspector finds anything that's devastating, we can renegotiate. But 20, let's leave it at 20. This is not that bad. The bushes are overgrown. The grass was a little high. I passed by this house every day because I was rehabbing another house back in the back of the neighborhood. And all I did was one day my eye noticed this window is always open. And there's one light on in this room. But every time I passed this house at nighttime, there were never any lights on except that one room. And the window was open. So one day in the daytime, I just decided I'm just going to knock and see what's going on. So I knocked on the door. I said, and nobody answered. So I sort of went behind these bushes and looked in that window, and there was a one light that was on, and the house had garbage in it, but there was no furniture. So I went to the neighbor. I said to the neighbor, I said, listen, I said, do you know anything about that house next door? I said, that one light's always on, and every time we pass by, that window's always open. What's going on with the house? She said, oh, that guy died. I said, well, does he have any relatives? Does anybody live there? She goes, no, he lived alone. And I said, does he have any relatives? He goes, well, he got divorced 10 years earlier, but he said he has a daughter who lives in Birmingham, Alabama. And I said, do you know how I could get a hold of her? He goes, no, she came down for the funeral and she went over to the house and took some things out. And she hasn't been back since. And I don't know where she lives or how to get in touch. So I did my skip tracing. And I used that to find that girl. And I got her name, email address, and phone number. And I called her and I said, would you be interested in selling this house? She said, oh my God, my father left that to me in his will. And she goes, I don't have time to mess with that. I don't want to deal with it. I said, well, I tell you what, I'll buy it in an as-is condition. She said, well, I guess we've got to wait till the probate ends. I said, well, listen, I said, I'll go ahead and make an offer for you to be thinking about. And so I made an offer of 106,000. The comps are 270, but it needed a lot of work. And she accepted the offer because she was on the will, but she wasn't able to release the house until the probate ended. But it went very fast. I put 60,000 into this house and sold it for $270,000. I bought it for 106. And she did not, when probate started, she said, I had other investors contact me, but I just told them, I said, no, it's already sold, already taken care of. She was so glad to have that offer plate. Now, let me tell you about this deal. I just sold this house May 7th, and I made 228,000 net profit. Here's how it happened. This is the way the house was. I kept trying to buy it from the owner, and he never would answer the door. He had code enforcement signs on his door. He paid the fines. He didn't have nowhere to go. You see, his mom and dad owned this house, and they raised 3 kids in the house. All the kids died, and the mom and dad have died before, and there was one guy left, and he was 62 years old, and he had diabetes and he had cataracts on his eyes, so he was basically blind. But I kept trying to buy it from him, and he never would answer the door. He wouldn't respond to my letters, and this guy never called off of my notes on the door, my beating on the door. He was in there. But I went to a neighbor. The neighbor said, oh, he's got diabetes. He's blind. He goes, all of his family died before him. He's very lonely. What happened is I told the neighbor, I said, well, I wish he'd sell me that house because, I bought a lot of houses in that neighborhood. And it's a very nice neighborhood. And this guy would not clean his up. So I told the neighbor, I said, if he would just sell it to me, I'd make it look beautiful. And all the neighbors said, yes, we would love for you to do that, but he has nowhere to go. Well, so I gave up. I finally threw in the towel and says, all right, I'm not going to pursue it anymore. And then the neighbor called me one day and said, hey, we found the guy dead. He died. The neighbor said he died without a will, and all of his house and his 2 cars and everything he owned was going to go to the state. It was going to get forfeited because the neighbor used to talk to this guy, and he always said he has no relatives. He has nobody, so why write a will? Well, that skip tracing thing I'm going to teach you on that Saturday, I went on that and I found a blood relative in Colorado. It was his mother's sister. And I contacted her in Colorado, and she was 70 years old. And I said, listen, I guess you might have heard that Perry died. And she goes, oh, no, I didn't hear about that. Oh, poor Perry. I said, well, listen, the reason I'm contacting you is because everything he owns is going to be forfeited to the state of Georgia. And I said that I'm willing to buy that house if you will become his personal representative. And she didn't know anything about it. She goes, oh, I haven't seen or talked to him in 15 years. She said, well, I don't want to come down there and have to deal with this. I'm not getting on no plane. I'm retiring next month. I'm terrified of COVID. I'm not getting on a plane. I said, I tell you what, I'll give you the names and numbers of some probate attorneys in Georgia. You give them a call and ask them if you can become Perry's personal representative. And so she did. And the attorney, the first one he said, yeah, I'll just send you some forms. You don't have to go out here. You just fill out the forms and we'll put it in the process. So she filled out the forms, and then it was very fast, the probate was. So I made an offer of 126,000 and she got that money. And here's why. See, the people are always saying there's no way to get good deals. I mean, people can sell their homes for top dollar even if they look like this. But so why do you think you could get one instead of some other investor? Well, it's because that lady, she told me, she says, well, I guess I need to have it cleaned out. She goes, who can I hire? I said, well, I'll do that for you, no charge. So she gave me permission to go in and clean everything out. She wanted to sell the cars. So I met with people to show them the cars. I helped her sell them. And, and I kept the grass cut and I trimmed the bushes. You see, this is what it looked like during the probate process because I had cut all the bushes and I kept the grass cut. I cleaned it up. I pressure washed it. Now, I didn't know if I was ever going to get the deal, but that's what I mean. By going the extra mile, there is no way that you could approach that lady and say, I'll give you more than he offered. I built a bond with this lady. And I do that with sellers. What happened is I bought this house for 126. At the time that I made the offer, the comps were 375. But just to show how crazy the market is, the house across the street was being rehabbed and they put it on the market at $500,000 and it sold. So my real estate agent that I always use to sell my homes said, we're putting yours on the market at 450. I said, oh, there's no way. I said, it was only worth 375 and I'm happy with that. He said, 450. I said, how about 420? He said, 450. Damn, we got 450. May 7th, I walked away with 228,000 net profit because of the way the market is. You ask a higher price and people will pay. It is crazy out there. Okay, so there it is. I fixed it up and I made 228,000. And then the seller. Let's talk about the seller. Could she have gotten more money? Yes, but she was about to retire. Do you think that she would invest $90,000 to fix this house up when she is retiring? No. Do you think she even wanted to come down here and deal with it to try to make more money? Do you think that she even really wanted to get involved? She didn't. That's what she told me. Well, guess what? She retired a month after I contacted her, and she walked away with 126 for the house. And then she got the money for the cars and furniture that I had a garage sale. And and also it turned out the guy had $100,000 in the bank. So she walked away with about 250,000 just because someone like you and me, the great real estate investors of the world, contacted that lady. And now her life and her retirement is prosperous. I'm a firm believer in real estate investor associations. When you first get in real estate, a lot of your friends and family say, oh, that doesn't work, or you can't do that. But you need to be around like-minded people with common goals and solutions and bounce it off each other. And it's just a great thing. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for the fact that back in the 80s, they had real estate investor associations, because my friends and family, they were all negative, saying that doesn't work. And I believed it did. So I needed to be around people like you guys that helped pump me up and keep me going and keep me motivated and updated.